Scottish Rugby Depth Chart for 2025, folks. What has Gregor Townsend been up to? Which players have been getting the game time and in which positions? It's kind of a weird one with Scotland because they've got a heap of rotation, sometimes forced on them by the Lions tour, meaning some guys were unavailable, by playing games outside of the test window, so guys are also unavailable, but also kind of stable in that from 2024 to 2025, there's not been too many changes in terms of like who was the front runner last year is generally still the front runner or the favorite player this year. One thing that is maybe a bit encouraging though is that the fact that there seems to be a core of the squad, a few players who are kind of in that age where they could potentially be peaking in 2027 come the next World Cup. These guys who are 28, 29, 30 potentially peak of their powers. But we'll go through the squad, which guys have been used, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. I should say I am including the Māori All Blacks game in this one because that was essentially not a test, but it was still Scotland. It wasn't like Scotland A or Scotland Development or anything like that. Loosehead prop, it's about as stable as it gets. Last year, it was these same three guys as your three front runners, Piers Schoolman, Roy Sutherland, and Nathan Macbeth. You've also got Alec Hepburn and Jamie Batty there as well, with kind of pretty token game time. But 1, 2, 3, Schoolman, Sutherland, and Macbeth. Same as last year. These guys are in their early 30s, and Macbeth's in his, I'm going to say late 20s, 27. So I think Loosehead looks all right. Tighthead, you feel like you have more eggs in one basket. But yeah, they've used 5 guys, and there seems to be a pretty clear pecking order, which is the same as last year's one. Hooker, Ewan Ashman at only 25 and dominating the minutes is kind of a youngish guy to be the front runner in his position, but he was the front runner last year too. Dave Cherry is there, although he did get all of his 28% in the Six Nations. He hasn't played since then and is kind of at the other end of the experience scale. George Turner is another one of the kind of more veteran guys as your third choice. Then you've also had Patrick Harrison and Harry Morris getting a taste as well. But it does feel like nobody's going to displace Ashman anytime soon. And this, as I said, he's still a very young man, still development to go in his game. Tighthead, you've always felt like, I mentioned all the eggs in one basket, Xander Fagerson has a lot of pressure on his shoulders, sometimes I guess literally when he's pushing at scrum time. 29 years old, more than double the minutes of his next best player or next most chosen player, and that's despite the fact that he missed a heap of rugby injured. He can still get better as well, 29, but he's been an absolute stalwart for Scottish rugby and has a lot of pressure on him. The other guys, Miller Mills, Darcy Ray, Will Hurd, Finlay Richardson, and Murphy Walker round out the rest of the minutes, but there's no kind of clear second choice, I suppose, but they did have to get more game time than they would be used to with Xander being out for as long as he was. I remember in the All Blacks game, they didn't have Xander and they did all right. It was pretty pleasing. So maybe it's not all on Xander like it kind of looks like it is at times, but honestly, if he wasn't injured, his game time would be 60%, maybe more. He would have gone on the Lions tour, so we wouldn't have counted any game time against the Māori All Blacks, Samoa, Fiji, etc. But yeah, he would have had more game time than he got. And it is one interesting thing about Gregor and the way he coaches, in that, like, not all the coaches, but there's very few coaches who leave guys on the bench for the entire game. In the modern game, it's becoming more and more of a rarity. Like, the way you use the bench is a key part of a coach's job. And very rarely do you see props forced to play 80, but Gregor's done that a couple of times this year. It's unusual. Like, Ireland also, like, Andrew Porter often plays pretty deep into the minutes, 65, 70 minutes, but most teams are moving towards bring the props off, following the kind of South African model, 40, 45, 50 minutes. Props are getting more of an even split. But yeah, we saw Will Hurd and Nathan Macbeth both as unused replacements in games this year. So it's a unique one for Gregor. Locks, you kind of got to ignore the numbers on the jerseys with the locks because Scotland seem to care less about the position being associated with a side of the scrum. A lot of teams put 4 and 5 on distinct sides. The Scots seem to keep the jersey to the player. Like Grant Gilchrist is always wearing 5, no matter which position he locks the scrum in. So if we look at tight head lock, Grant Gilchrist is your first choice, followed by Johnny Gray, who again, like Dave Cherry, played all his minutes in the Six Nations, hasn't appeared since. Then you've had, because those guys are both kind of veterans, a couple of, a handful of younger guys, Marshall Sykes, Max Williamson, Alex Samuel, they're all in their 20s, get a bit of game time elsewhere. Marshall Sykes has been your kind of clear third choice. So there's no real one front runner on the tight head side, but multiple guys getting opportunities. But if you want to say like a front runner for the locks generally, it has been Grant Gilchrist, because if you look at the loose head side, he's your first choice there as well. Still only 35%, but if you put both his amounts of minutes together, he's getting 70% of the game time in the second row, the 35-year-old. So he is one of the, I think he's the most senior guy in the squad, just in terms of his age profile. Scott Cummings, Gregor Brown. Gregor Brown's had a bit of a breakthrough year, you feel, taking his game to a new level. Cameron Henderson, Max Williamson, Alex Samuel, other guys to get game time in the second row. Josh Bayless and Ewan Johnson, really kind of token minutes. But yeah, it's interesting they don't specialize as much. Like Gilchrist, Williamson, Samuel, these guys have all played kind of both sides of the second row. So less like France and South Africa, more like, I guess, New Zealand do it a bit. We specialize a little bit, but not as much with our locks. Loosies, you feel like Scotland's got a lot of loosies. There are guys who can't get into the team due to the depth you've got there, but it's also an interesting one in that apart from number 7, there's still not a guy who's getting 50% plus of the minutes. Like number 6, blindside, Jamie Ritchie. First choice was only 30% of the time. Remember, he's not always available because he plays the rugby in France. Matt Fagerson is there, and he's a real utility guy. Josh Bayless, Andy Christie, Gregor Brown, and Liam McConnell. Just the one game, I think it was against the US. But yeah, kind of hard tackling Jamie Ritchie, turnover merchant Jamie Ritchie as your first choice. Swiss Army knife player Matt Fagerson as your second choice. 7 is Rory Darge. That's simple as. Didn't go on the Lions tour, I guess helps him out in terms of accumulating minutes. And he's only 25. So you can kind of lock him in for quite some time. Great at the ruck, great at tackles. And then Jamie Ritchie's your second choice there as well. Dylan Richardson, Andy Christie, and Matt Fagerson there too. So utilities are also quite a bit of a thing with the Scottish squad. There's a lot of guys who play multiple positions. You've also had Ben Muncaster, who would have had more game time if not for injury, I think. And then Josh Bayless there too. Number 8, Jack Dempsey. I believe he missed a bit of game time as well. Testing my memory now, but I think his numbers might have been a bit higher if not for injury. But again, he's first choice. Matt Fagerson again in another position. He's your second choice. And then Magnus Bradbury is your third. Mussy Bucker, Muncaster, Bayless, and I think 2 minutes of Cameron Henderson there as well. That would have been covering in a pinch. But Dempsey is your clear first choice. So Dempsey, Darge, and Ritchie. That is the most kind of selected back row. But bloody Matt Fagerson's everywhere, isn't he? Real kind of utility guy. Number 9 looks like a pretty healthy depth chart to me. Ben White's your first choice. Again, playing rugby in France, not always available. Jamie Dobby, another utility guy, second choice. And then George Horn, third choice. I feel like that's kind of what a depth chart's supposed to look like. Nobody's over-relied upon. Your first choice has had still the lion's share of the game time. That to me seems a pretty healthy one. And you got different styles to play different games. Like George Horn's so nippy. Jamie Dobby can be the utility cover guy. Ben White's got quite the kicking game on him. So, yeah, you can take your choice with 9s. 10s, you've played 5 of them. Although I'm not sure Ross Thompson, who's your least played guy, would have got a game time if not for the game scheduled outside the test window. But who knows. Finn Russell, though, 50% of the game time. He's your first choice by a mile. In other years with no Lions tour and games outside the test window and whatnot, he's probably getting more than that. Fergus Burke has become your second choice, and Adam Hastings was third, plus a little bit of another utility in Tom Jordan, who will pop up in other positions too. Inside centre, again, I feel like it's kind of like number 9. It's a pretty healthy split, but interestingly, your captain, Sione Tuipulotu, is third because of the Lions tour and because of his injuries. Missed a lot of rugby this year. Only really played at the end of the year. Otherwise, he's definitely your first choice. But how good is it to have Stafford McDowell as your second? Or in this case, he's the most, you know. What an able replacement to have. That's what building depth is about. And then utility, Tom Jordan is there too. So that looks pretty healthy for mine. And then 13, Hugh Jones would probably have more game time if not for his injuries. But again, you're blessed in the midfield with so much talent. Rory Hutchinson there. Ollie Smith's had time there. Cameron Redpath couldn't even make the team at the end of the year. Hell of a footballer. Stafford McDowell and Kyle Steyn kind of filling in a pinch. But yeah, very, very, very deep in the depth in the midfield, I feel. And then the wings and fullback, the outside backs, is, I think, one of those kind of core areas which is hopefully going to be peaking come Rugby World Cup. Duhan on the left wing, approximately 60% of the game time. He's 30, and you know him and Darcy Graham are always going back and forth as to who's going to be the top try scorer for Scotland. Kyle Steyn and Aaron Reid getting the other game time there. And then right wing, a few more faces used. Darcy Graham, his minutes have gone up from last year where he spent a time on the sideline. Kyle Rowe, Jamie Dobby kind of switching there, and like Harry Patterson got a game against the Māori All Blacks there on the right wing, plus Kyle Steyn, a little bit of game time there too. Fullback, Blair Kinghorn, close to 60% of the game time. Kyle Rowe's been your kind of second replacement, and the other minutes are split between Ollie Smith, Tom Jordan, and I think Fergus Burke shifted to fullback for a brief period in one game. But yeah, you got a lot of utilities in Scotland, like Jamie Dobby, 9 and wing. Matt Fagerson, every position in the back row. Tom Jordan, multiple positions in the back line, like 10, 12, 15. Kyle Steyn, both wings, midfield. There's a lot of... It's definitely a good skill to have. And like Grant Gilchrist, either side of the second row, doesn't really matter. It's specialization versus options. Versatility, that's the word I'm looking for, with the Scottish squad. One thing I will note, and it is, I think, due to the Lions Tour and, as I said, games outside the test window, there seems to be with Scotland less, as I said, kind of consistency. There is more rotation throughout the year, in that only Rory Darge has 60% of the game time in a single position. Most other countries have more than one guy like that, but if not for the Lions Tour, if not for a couple of guys being injured, if not for games outside the test window, I think Scotland have more. So I would kind of, when we look at the overall graph of all the positions, it doesn't look as there's many with 50% plus. I think we can kind of put that to one side a little bit and know that the first choice guys are largely still the first choice guys. Average age of the squad is around about 28, so it is moving up a little bit as the core of the squad. You know, Finn Russell's 33, Tuipulotu's 28, Darcy Graham's 28, Duhan's 30, Kinghorn's 28. This is what I mean about the core of the squad that should be kind of peaking. Alexander's 29. Some of these guys should be peaking come 2027. But we will see. Gregor does keep things a little bit versatile. Like there's been a little bit hard to map at times. Like I think Matt Fagerson and Jamie Ritchie have swapped spots at times in the back row, depending on if it's attacking or defending. So they do a little bit of versatile stuff. Jamie Dobby being the guy able to switch does give Gregor more options, but yeah, the core is still there for the Scots, with a bit of depth built during the Lions Tour and against the likes of the US and whatnot. We'll see how they go in the Six Nations. I still feel like, and I feel like I say this every year, maybe I'm just a fool, I still feel like there's more to get out of the Scotland squad if Gregor can unlock it. But as I said, maybe I'm just a fool and need to reset my expectations. But anyway, you guys let us know your thoughts. Is there too much utility play going on? Would you rather see some more specialists in the squad? Or are you happy with the way Gregor has been building the depth throughout 2025? If you want to see how some of the other coaches are doing it, like South Africa, we've done a video for their depth chart already. We've done the All Blacks, England, multiple other teams. You guys subscribe if you haven't. Take care, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.